Today our speaker is Rebecca Kimbel to prevent domestic violence and to stop trafficking in women. But do you know that a type of violence and trafficking exists in our country? As we know, worldwide women are oppressed in the name of extreme religious beliefs, and that is true here in our country as well. I hope her presentation will give us an understanding of how women in the situations like domestic violence, trafficking, find it so hard to break away and get help. It is my pleasure to introduce Rebecca, and as this is her own little introduction of what she said. I was born here in the land of the free and the home of the brave. In the name of freedom of religion, I was born into slavery, worked as a slave, sold as a child bride, and bred as a slave. I had 9 pregnancies by the time I was 23. If I was 23, my birth certificate is a forgery. My story is not unique. With that, Rebecca.
Infamous intrigue of polygamy, power, and murder was front page news for over a decade. John Krakauer recently wrote a book about it that's going to become a movie. This book is about the people of my history. Ervil LeBaron ordered the execution of approximately 30 people. He didn't pull the trigger. He had people he trained to kill for him. He was killing people because he couldn't control them and they weren't obedient and they were not bowing down to him. He decided that he was God's mouthpiece on earth. This book is called Cult Insanity. Ervil LeBaron was my brother-in-law's brother. I had family and friends murdered for thinking for themselves. One of those murdered was Dr. Reuben Clark Allred. He was gunned down in his Murray, Utah office because he would not yield to Ervil LeBaron. Ervil LeBaron had his own polygamous cult, but Dr. Allred was the head of the second largest polygamous cult in the United States that we know of. It's called the AUB today. Then it was the Allred clan. Dr. Allred was my uncle. This book was written by my cousin. This is about his murder and his family. I came to live in Humboldt County because my sister Irene was on the list of people who were to be executed. She had been given as a child bride to a cult in Mexico because women are trafficked between all of these cults from Canada to Mexico. All of the cults that claim or blame Mormonism. I would wish to state here that all polygamists have someone to blame because it's a narcissistic quote-unquote religion. Therefore, narcissists are never responsible for their own behavior. If they're Muslim polygamists, they blame Abraham in the Bible. If they're Christian or Jewish polygamists, they blame King David. If they're modern-day polygamists, they blame Mormonism. But they all blame somebody who lived 150 or thousands of years before they were ever born for their behavior today. Why did they do it? Because it works. Ladies, I want you to know that polygamy is not a lifestyle. Using those words is throwing a cloak over the subjugation of women in the name of religion or a lifestyle. When we back, when we condone, and when we accept in the name of being politically correct anything that takes the freedom away from one group of people, the freedom of all of us is in danger. That's very important because America is getting very accepting of anything in the name of being politically correct. There's another book here, and many more. This one was written by my niece, The Sixth of Seven Wives. And today I have a YouTube interview site where I interview a lot of people, mostly unsung heroes, but I happen to enjoy doing things in the media. But my site is peppered with women who have escaped. It's peppered because it's my pet peeve. I was born into a religion where women were property. The men owned the women as chattel. They were given to the women by God. The children didn't belong to the women. The children belonged to the men. In our religion, it was a sacred secret that if you left the religion, the only way you could be saved was to be murdered, have your throat slit from ear to ear, and let your blood drain out as an incense to God to save your evil soul. And that's what you did to people you loved to keep them from going to hell. All scripture is written. But how it is interpreted and how it has changed over the years has always depended on the person in control of that literature. We were taught that those words that I was raised on were the words of God coming through His prophet. I'd like to point out that since I'm a little older and a little wiser and a rebel and have gotten away, that I realize that every one of these self-proclaimed prophets, including Warren Jeffs, wrote his own scripture. And they attributed it to God or any power they feel would be a bigger stick to hit you over the head with. And if you're raised that way from the time you're a little girl, you know the consequences of leaving can be losing your children, being totally disowned by your family, physical, emotional, and verbal abuse, and your death if they so see fit. Killing you is okay. Just don't get caught. Erbil LeBaron, that killed so many people. The rest of the polygamist group stood up and said, "We have nothing to do with him. He's not us. We don't believe that." That every single one of them were raised on the same scripture I was raised on. Cody Brown and I had the same paternal grandfather. Cody Brown belongs to the AUB, the Allred group. Two of his wives are my second cousins. Today, he's on television, going forward, filing action against the United States, Utah specifically, suing them for his freedom of religion and not letting him live polygamy. Only in America can you sue your country for not keeping its laws. Only in America. What are we thinking? His women get up and they back it and condone it and support it. Please, ladies, they have to. If they don't, they're going to hell. They will suffer eternal damnation. My father told me that he, not God, he, would not resurrect me from the grave if I didn't bring my daughters to him to place in polygamous marriages. I never saw my father again. My choice. Please understand that there is no freedom in denying freedom. In the name of religion, we have no right to take somebody else's freedom. If they can't stand on the golden rule, they don't stand at all. If it's not good, I don't care what you believe or don't believe, don't blame it on the God. When I was a little girl, I remember hanging on my mother's skirt as she was running. She was very heavy with baby, about ready to deliver. And we were running down the road, hiding in the bushes from the police. They were having a roundup trying to catch polygamists in Utah. It was a political year. My brothers scattered and went other directions, but I was 4½. So I clung on Mom's skirt, and she said, up here, up the street, I know a lady that's a Catholic. I'm going to knock on her door, and we're going to go in her house, and don't you speak, don't say a word. But we've got to get inside. Now, we were taught that we were God's chosen people on earth. And when the house of the Lord was set in order, we would be the only ones protected. God would rise up and put the men that controlled us in control of the whole earth. Our men were going to be gods. They were going to people their own planet with their own seed. They were uneducated. They didn't know anything about interbreeding, but that's what they were going to do. And we were going to be goddesses in heaven for obedience. I learned that a goddess in heaven is the same slave she is here on earth, but she gets to wear a crown while she's doing it. So we came to the lady's door, and I was terrified because I had been told that Catholics were of the devil. They were the worst people on earth. And I was getting ready to go into the devil's house. And I could still feel my mom's hand pushing me through the door when the lady answered it. And I was shaking. And I stood behind my mother and I held on to her skirt while they talked. And I looked around, and her home was beautiful. To me, it was a palace. Everything was clean. Everywhere. Even the floor. The furniture matched. And my eyes came to rest on a little glass curio cabinet. There was a little Swiss boy and a little Swiss girl Hummel dolls in there. And I was fixated on them. And the woman said, do you like those? And I got scared. I stepped behind Mom and I got really scared. And the woman was a wise woman. And she said to my mother, will you allow your daughter to speak to me? My mother was ashamed and embarrassed. She shook me. She said, Rebecca, you answer the lady. I couldn't get any sound to come out. I was frozen. And in that moment, something happened. It changed my life. I could feel the love coming from that woman that I'd never felt in my life. The peace, the acceptance. Even as a little girl, I knew my mama lied to me. I met a very good person. She said to Mom, if I give these Hummel dolls to your little girl, will you let her keep them? Mama said, don't do that. Where I come from, you can't have anything nice. We believe in sacrifice. The more you sacrifice, the greater your rewards in heaven. Here, squat. But Mom was ashamed, so she made the promise. And the woman said, I hold you to that promise. Make it again. And she did. That woman reached up, and out of that cabinet, she took those little dolls and she gave them to me. We had to hide them in a tin can and bury them in the yard, and I couldn't tell anybody they were there. Dig them up every few months, maybe, and look at them. But those dolls had a place in my home till I became a grandmother. Every time I saw them, I remembered that day. I never knew that woman's name. I never did speak to her. But she changed my life. That was the first peeling of the onion. I was born in isolation. The education I got was confined to the religious books. We were taught and homeschooled in a manner which would never qualify as education. But they made one big mistake. They taught me to read. And when I got out on my own, I read everything I could get my hands on. I read my way through all the great religions in the world and all the theologies and all the philosophies, and I'm still a book addict. But I've learned that you cannot hang a label on a human being and know what you were talking about unless you walked in their shoes. Inside every single living human being is a human soul that bleeds when it's cut the same way you do. If you want to know how these polygamous women on Sister Wives really feel about their husband bedding their best friend in the room next door, how would you feel? Would that increase or decrease your pain? If your friend goes to bed with your husband and you have to like it, I'm going to tell you something, girls. You feel the same way they feel, and they feel the same way you feel. But they have to back it or go to hell. Go to hell, run the risk of getting out. I have a YouTube site up by the author of this book, Irene Spencer. This is her New York Times best-selling book. And I just recently did an interview of her, and I said, "Sis, will you please tell the people what the consequences are of leaving polygamy?" What they really are. This week, Canada's headlines, Muslim polygamist murders second wife and 3 daughters, because they dressed American. Started to think. It doesn't matter what name you hang on the behavior, religion or non-religion. I've had people say, especially my family, stand up and say, "Hey, there are abuses in monogamy. You can't blame polygamy." Wrong. Whenever you have a person over here that has all the rights and a person over here that has none, the degree of abuse is always in direct proportion to the distance between the two. When you can find a person that you can condemn as less human than you are, the condemnation is always in direct proportion to how much bigger and better you think you are than them. And in polygamy, the rights of a woman are compromised and compromised and compromised. She can't leave, she'll lose her children. She was probably married so young that she had a huge family to be responsible for before she ever knew how to be responsible for herself. How will she survive if she doesn't have a sister wife that helps take care of those kids and is in the same bondage and understands no matter how she feels about what's going on sexually? How will she survive? How many of you saw Warren Jeffs when he went to prison in Texas? Warren Jeffs' father performed my marriage when I was a child bride. Someone recently sent me a picture of 57 of his wives. I found out that I'm related to all except one of them on one side of my family. I haven't got my father's genealogy. But the girl who was related to me was my father's best friend. Had the same last name, so I'm sure she's a descendant. Our time is winding down. Is there anyone who would like to ask any questions?
Rebecca, I have one question. Is there groups out, is there anything available if a young woman in that situation wants to get away? Is there any resources out there for her to find and reach out for?
Yes, and you're best not to go to Utah to get them, because some of the resources are run by polygamists. So you can actually end up coming around the back door and going in a complete circle. But when I say Utah, I'm talking about Utah government-run things. There is a station in Utah called www.whatloveisthis.com, and it's live streaming television, and it's a Christian organization. They will help you. They're open to help you, and they advertise that they will help you. And it's www.whatloveisthis. Look it up on the web, and you can actually get in and make contact and listen to the shows, because after they're on live, they're put upon the web, and they will help.
How do women that are in that situation, like to find out about that station that you just talked about? I mean, is there any kind of, people like you that know what, and to try to help them?
Very few people know how to get help because they're isolated. The information, you need to realize always that the person that controls the information controls the people. So you can be guaranteed the information is controlled. These people that are in that cult in Yearning for Zion, Texas, didn't even get to see the news. They're building a 30-foot statue in honor of their child molesting prophet. They don't know.
So what percentage would you say of women actually do successfully leave?
Very few, because most of them have huge families, they're uneducated, and they don't know how to take care of themselves. They're afraid to go out for, literally, how will I live? How will my children live? And then the risk is really, really high. The ones that have pulled away, and some of them are on my website, on my YouTube site, but the ones that have pulled away faced their death, almost all of them, and decided they'd rather be dead. And that's what happened to me. There's something about facing your death that gives you the power to live. What are they going to do, kill you?
So when you were mentioning like Muslim polygamists, I mean, when I think of polygamy, I always just think of Utah, Mormons. So that makes me think, okay, well, gosh, and I always think that for some reason just in Utah. Do you see things locally?
It goes. I am related to girls in Canada, clear to Nicaragua, that have been trafficked through these different cults. My sister Irene, she was in the same colony that Mitt Romney's grandfather was a polygamist in Mexico. Please understand that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints does not condone or back polygamy. You can be excommunicated today for that. They do not support it in any way. Also, please understand, I'm just telling you the truth of my heart. It is unjust to blame Mitt Romney for his grandfather's behavior as it is for you to blame me for my father's. And I don't accept.
Are there ways and signs? I mean, I know we've learned a little bit in our club about looking for signs for human trafficking. I'm sure you're tuned in to finding or seeing people who might be in a similar situation. Is there some kind of, for people like us who are just out and about every day, is there some kind of signs or something that you would see or notice in?
If a woman or a girl or a child is afraid to speak without looking at the adult next to them for permission, if they're so cautious of everything they say and do, and they will not spontaneously act at all, something is wrong. So how can we help? Unfortunately, the very best thing you can do is educate, because people deny. Just like now, what's going on television with sister wives, they're literally trying to make it so that it is no longer illegal. They're not trying to make it legal, they're trying to make it so it's just not decriminalized. The reason they don't want it to be legal is because then Cody would be responsible for all that family he's creating. And he doesn't want to be. You're responsible.
Right.
You're responsible. I'm a welfare baby. And in Utah, the Attorney General, Mark Shurtleff, says, hey, all of these things on the welfare thing don't pan out. I said, Mark, of course they don't pan out. We all have forged birth certificates. My mom had 6 kids by my dad, and none of us even had the same last name. How are you going to make a man be responsible for the children he spawns when you don't do DNA? You can't. Just that simple. These men are not supporting their children. You are, directly and indirectly. I think we're out of time.
Well, so you're saying just educate and talk and learn from you and learn from reading?
I personally like to see them put some laws, some teeth in the law, and not give out funding for children unless parents were willing, didn't have to, but were willing and signed papers that they would submit to DNA testing. That way, where they have these hotbeds of polygamy and they know they're polygamists, they do something about it. Utah's very slow to prosecute because of polygamy in their history. They just like to hide under the covers and pretend it's going to go away. But thank God for Texas, 3 more arrests this week.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rebecca. You have opened our eyes. Her, and you said, you know, as she talked about polygamy being with Utah, but it's in other cultures, in other countries, under other extreme religious labels. This is not just, like she said, it's not the religion itself, it's the extremists that are using it as a blanket. And it exists in Thailand and all over the Asia, and you'll find this, that women are treated as if they were just, we know we had projects in Thailand where foreign families would sell their daughters into prostitution and such for money because they had no way to support themselves. This happens all over the world, and we need to be aware of it, that there's all kinds of things out there that we just need to be aware and reach out to women we see that don't look like they can speak, or else to try to somehow get information to us. So I thank Rebecca for opening our eyes to a new form of things that we've been working on. So thank you.